Hi you guys, I'm Leanne and I'll be your instructor for your lesson today. We're really excited about today's lesson and we think you're going to love it. As always, make sure that you guys are working on the map that's provided in the box when you're working on your table. Make sure that you put your name on your project legibly, because there's going to be a lot of you guys coming in and bringing stuff to us, so we want to make sure that we know whose is whose. And lastly, make sure that you clean up really well after each lesson. A bucket of water and a sponge and just a quick wipe down the mat should be all you need. All right, we're excited. Let's get started. As always, when you guys are working, make sure that you are working on the map that we provided. There's two sides, the cream side and the white side. You guys are going to be wanting to work on the white side since it's the easiest to wipe down. And make sure your board is handy. The first thing that you'll do is you'll find a slab of clay in your box, or it'll already be on the board, and that's going to be what we're going to be building on top of to make these lovely forms today. So our project today is these underwater sea forms. We're going to be working on texture, variety, and kind of building these to create a coral scene. I have provided you guys with a black and white copy of a live coral reef, and why we did black and white is because we don't want to be distracted by the color. I want you guys to be focusing on what's happening here, the different textures, the different shapes that we're seeing, and how building those on top of each other is creating the realism that is needed for this project. All right, the first thing that we'll do is take your clay out, and you guys are just going to start kind of building. I'm going to show you guys kind of how to do just a couple different forms onto here, and then I'm going to have you, most of this lesson is about you guys experimenting with building on forms with your tools, your shapes, and seeing how successful the layering of different patterns and objects is to create a realistic scene. So let's start just by showing you kind of how to create these large tubular forms. So I'm going to start with some pretty good amount of clay. I'll take it in my hand and kind of squeeze it in between my hand to elongate it. Then I'm going to stick it on my mat and I'm going to gently roll it out. I'm going to set it to the side. And I'm going to go ahead and do 3 of these before I attach them. So I'm not kind of going back and forth. I'm getting all of my shapes and forms. Same way, I'm just rolling it out, kind of making little, they look like little sausages. It's about the thickness of my thumb. Same thing here. I'm going to come in. I'm going to roll these here. And each one doesn't have to be the same size. We can be different because that's going to create some variety. I'm going to score whatever you guys are adding onto your tile today. Make sure that you score and slip. That's what's going to make these successful on staying together. So I'm slipping, which is just that watered down clay. I'm going to come in here and I'm going to pop down. I'm going to wiggle this down to get a good attachment. I'm wiggling down to get a good attachment, and I'm wiggling down to get a good attachment. I can come in here and take one of my tools and just kind of move down, opening up that center part of it. That's going to give me that hollow. Look like little stovepipes in the sea, don't they? Okay. Next, I'm going to come around and I'm going to add, and I'm just rolling bits of clay. I'm tearing them apart. And I'm rolling it between my fingers here. I'm rolling it between my fingers. I turn the palms of my hands just for nice little round shapes. Instead of evens, I like 3s and 5s when I'm adding stuff in. I'm actually going to add that right into there. And I'm looking for variety in height. Since we've got something pretty tall happening down up here, I'm going to go with something a little bit smaller. Now I can come in here too, and I can use this tool, and I can add line work into it. That's one way. I can also just kind of rock this tool down it going to create some texture and break it up a little bit. Okay. Next, now I'm going to come in and I'm going to do some smaller ones in those same little kind of areas. I'm going to use my fork and score. Coming here and I'm slipping. Making these smaller ones kind of come. And do you see how nothing matches really in size? It's making it just a little bit better. I'm going to kind of put holes into these, moving down. I think I'm going to put a rather large coral reef in front of this. So I can kind of come here, and that same thing that I did before, I'm just rolling it between my fingers, and I'm rolling it out. And now I'm going to roll a pretty good sized coil here, leaving it kind of thick, and I'm just going to lay this coil directly onto my slab of clay. Now coming here, I'm going to pinch this up and thin this out. And by doing so, I'm going to start to get, I can wave it kind of, and I'm going to start to get kind of these thin, fun, taller forms that create some kind of movement into here. I'm going to put something rather large here. I'm going to go with one more stovepipe. Moving in. Put this on here. And now I'm going to take this whole thing and I'm just going to kind of overlap this texture to give me some fun coral texture. That coral's kind of spongy, so I want to give that between the contrast between the smooth and the rough. Is going to give me a couple ideas for it. So you guys just kind of experiment and keep building. So you see in a rather quick amount of time, just by focusing on different forms, shapes, and variety, I'm allowed to get more of a realistic scenes as we overlap these components into our project. I just wanted to give you guys some examples of some work of these that we've done in the past, just to show you guys a finished product. On this one right here, I think it's a strong, these attentions to details and this texture kind of moving through. I'm loving this, the softness, and that's just playing and pinching these little forms out with your fingers. That addition to the starfish on top, I think kind of adds to it. This one right here, we did lots of these kind of tall, erect forms into it. So it's that kind of, that contrast between those straight forms versus this round right here. And by just adding and layering, again, it's creating kind of a really neat, realistic environment. We have our octopus. So you guys go ahead, and if you want to add a creature onto your wreath, you sure can. I just don't want it to be the main component of your project. We want to make sure that these textures and this variety of shapes is what we're focusing on. Here's another, just to give you guys some ideas. And this is just to kind of help you guys not only visually looking at your source material, but this will kind of give you an idea of how the clay can translate into these forms. I love this U-shaped one right there. Okay, great job on today's lesson, you guys. As always, I just want to go over just a little quick cleanup procedure. So when you guys get finished with your projects, please set them on. There'll either be a board or a little orange mat in your kit. So you'll want to put there, make sure your initials are legible somewhere on the project, placing it here and set to the side. This is what's going to come back to the studio along with the tools. When you transport this back, these are going to be fragile. So you guys do want to make sure that you're kind of careful with your project moving it back. You have a sponge that was provided in your kit. And you're gonna need you just to wipe down your mat, just like we always do in the studio when we wipe down and clean up our places. You guys are gonna make sure you wipe down your mat to get that clay dust off there. You can just either take it outside and shake it off. Also, if you had too many crumbs on there or anything along those lines, then when you get done, you can just roll it up. Put it to the side and return back to the studio.